Hello and welcome to another devlog for Chromosphere. Chromosphere is a game that is based on a comic and novel series that I've been working on for 25 years now. And it's really fun to try and put that whole world into a game. So this is using rpgmaker, and the goal was to have a game where people can go and explore this vast world that I've created and live out the story for themselves. It wasn't a focus on coding, but more a focus on storytelling, how to do game art, how to fit that art into the game, and all the things that make a game original and make an experience for the player. So that's why I'm using rpgmaker, and these devlogs kind of go through my whole process for doing this. So what have I done since the last time we've talked? Yeah, let's get into the game and find out, shall we? So I want to start with the biggest announcement that I have for this game, and that is that I have an official composer now. So somebody was gracious enough to volunteer to do some awesome music for this game, which brought along two issues that I had to immediately solve. The first was, this was supposed to be a forever game. It didn't have an ending, didn't have a schedule, didn't have any release date, because it was just something that I was going to just continuously update, keep learning more, keep updating, keep adding, and things like that, and put this big old story in this one game. But that's not going to work anymore, because composers want to hear their music in the game, in a release game, right? So I needed to take a step back and figure out, okay, where is this first game going to actually end, and what am I going to do to make those games consistent between each other, since now there has to be a series instead of just this one long forever game. So I wanted a style of RPG that was my own, that I could do in all of the games and have it be very consistent between from one game to the next. So I thought about it a lot, and I've decided to take a leaf out of Mario 64 and those type of games, and say that this hub, which is the town that you're in, and you unlock more towns as you go through the main storyline, each of those towns is going to be a little hub, and in that hub you have different places that you can go, things you can explore, secrets to unlock, all kinds of things like that. But it all tracks back to this one hub, because I've noticed in like Metrovanias and things like that they all have these big maps, and they're all interlocking, and it's very, very easy to get lost, not know where to go next, and it can be quite frustrating. So I wanted to give that exploration feeling that those Metrovanias give, but in a way that it's very hard for you to actually get lost, so you're not afraid to go off the beaten path, because you know that it's going to come right back to this main hub. And if you need to backtrack, you're just backtracking to the hub and then to those few explorable areas that you can get to. And even more so than that, every map that you get to is going to be a small map. They're not going to be any very, very large, overpowering maps in the game. So you have very, very small maps. Very, very small. Any place that you can get to is going to be a small map. Even the caves, I've actually made those smaller for those of you that played the demo. These are even going to be smaller in size to coincide with that. So you don't have a fear of exploring, because all the maps are small, and you don't need a big overworld map. You don't need, to zoom in on these little mini maps in the corner that you see in some games. You don't need any of that, because everything is small, and it'll give me a way to be a lot more creative with how I design these maps and what I put in them, and just the overall aesthetic of them, and I'm really excited for that. It also gives me an easy update loop. You know, new town is unlocked, that's a new update, and here's, you know, all the little areas that you can find in them. Very easy, very simple, and I really like it. It de-scoped the game a lot for me. It went from a really big game to something that's doable in chunks, and I don't see many RPGs take that approach. You know, most of them have really big maps and, you know, a lot of interlocking pieces and big world maps and things like that, and I'm like, I don't want any of that. So this is gonna be fun, and it also makes me be very meaningful with what I put in the different towns and what those towns mean, and very strategic and purposeful with everything. So I like that too, because it's gonna help enhance my story as well, having to think about that and being very purposeful with what I put where. So that's the biggest announcement. So as far as the game, what have I been doing? Well, there is a day and night cycle in this game now. You can't tell because I'm covering it right now, but there's a box in the bottom with the time of day as well as what month it is. The months I'm not using as months. I'm using them to do the Astrian seasons. Since you can't really change the seasons in the plugin that I'm using, I've decided to use the months to denote the Astrian seasons. And the reason that I have a day and night cycle is because I want to be able to have different things spawn at night, be able to, you know, regrow resources. So you're able to come back and get more resources when you need to, and just little secrets that happen at different times of the day. So I really like it. As the day goes by, you'll see the outside get darker or lighter depending on the time of day, which is really cool. And hopefully I'll be getting the lighting add-on for this, so it's a little bit more dramatic, as long as along with weather effects, so I can really make the different seasons stand out. Okay, so enough of me just running around. Let's get to something that I can actually tell you about and show. So I've been getting the field effects down. So the biggest thing that I wanted to do was have environmental storytelling, much like the Metroid Prime series does, where you kind of have to read all the optional things and put them together to figure out what's going on. And I wanted that to be your reason behind your exploration. You're gonna get so much of the story by exploring, much more than you get by just doing the main quest line, right? So part of that is environmental storytelling, environmental interaction. So now we have it to where either one of these gals can light this torch. So these are your field skills, and these abilities, a lot of them are going to be optional. There are a few that are going to be mandatory, but I'm telling you, getting these abilities are going to help you unlock a lot of other really cool things in the future as you go through the game. So I showed this before, but now it's in a proper menu. Her touch of nature that blooms the flowers. Now I had to do a few things to get both the respawning system and another part of this to work. So I'm going to explain that really quick. The easy way to explain it is I wanted to have a respawn system where there's certain resources that respawn at the beginning of your day. Problem is, I found out, and it's probably something that I'm doing wrong, if you have an event and that event turns its own switch off, the picture doesn't update. So if I go back to the software and I show you this event, So I can turn the switch on and it moves to the next page, right? Originally what I wanted to do to have the respawn mechanic work was put in here, hey, if it's this time of day, turn your switch off. And then it will go and do it to where you can actually pick the resources again. Problem is, it worked a little bit, but it doesn't update this image right here. For some reason, anytime I do the self switch where it has to go back a page, it doesn't update this image. So while the functionality worked, the image did not. So I did some research and I found a really nice script that I will link in the description. And I'll show you what that looks like if I go to common events, regrow. So this piece here I got from the script, and as you can see, once I put in a common event and let that common event turn this switch off, the picture and everything will reset. So it actually works for some reason as long as the event is not turning its own switch off. So I have it checking for the time of day that I want everything to do. Now when I had this like this, it will respawn the resource the entire hour as long as the current hour is the same, which is also not what I wanted. So I have it waiting for about an hour. So whenever you pick it, by the time the wait frames are over, the hour has changed, so you can't actually, it won't respawn again. So a bit frustrating, but I finally got it to work. And if I were to look in here, here's the other part of the code that I got from the site. Normally it has frames that it'll wait before it respawns, but I had to change a few things to get it to work with the day-night system instead. But finally got it to work. Really happy with that, because there's a mechanic that I used to have on my website game that I want to put into this game, and this is going to help me do it. Now, what I was saying earlier about that leading into another one, if we go back to the game, I'll show you the other. See, it's bright now because the time is changing. We bloomed this one. Now I know how to do catalyst. So this blooming will actually ignite both of these little bubbling fire pits right here. So if I do it here, it does that. And it took so long for this to actually work. Like I said, just because you're using RPG Maker, there's still things that you have to learn and debug, and it's not all that easy. Even if you are using plugins, there's a lot of things that you still have to learn, and I'm still learning, which is fine. But that catalyst, learning from the respawn system, I took that into account when trying to get this plugin to work. So I'll show you what I had to do there. So we go back to the database, and I have a common event for both of these catalysts. So the one for lighting the torch and one for blooming the roses. There are two ways to do a catalyst. There's one that's event specific, that's not a plugin command. I could not get that one to work. I don't know why. It had to be a plugin command. That's the only way I could get it to work. I have a reaction type that you can name whatever you want. I have floor for this one, and fire and flame for this one. And then the location. So location, once you set it off, it'll look in those locations, and if something else has the same reaction type, it'll go off as well. So that's how that works. So if I open one of these, here's the reactor with the type, and then if it finds it, what happens to it? It changes to the flame. So took me a while to get that one. This is going to help a lot with environmental storytelling, because I'm going to be able to do some pretty cool things, pretty cool interactions that'll happen, and things that you can unlock by getting these abilities. So while a lot of this that I'm doing is optional, I want players to want to do it. So it's a big part of this, and that's going to help a lot. And I believe that is all of the updates that I have for this video. I don't want to be rambling on too long. So there'll be a part 2 with the rest of the stuff, because I've done a lot in this program and in this game while I've been gone. So anyway, in the comments, please let me know, are you excited about this game? Do you want to play this game? What other things do you want to see in my devlogs? I'm trying to give more of a behind the scenes look at what I'm doing. Even though it is an RPG Maker, I still want to give a behind the scenes at what I'm doing, because it doesn't all just happen. Even though it is this kind of game engine, it does take work behind the scenes. And just give me your thoughts. So with that said, until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.